When you give sacrificially to the World Evangelism Fund, the Holy Spirit empowers amazing mission and global ministries. What you give provides full-time missionaries with a salary, medical insurance, and housing while they serve. Your giving for the World Evangelism Fund starts new churches around the world and provides training resources for equipping pastors and church leaders. It provides literature in more than 90 languages. This includes resources for pastors and Bible-based teaching materials for children, youth, and adults. What you give supports the work of the whole global Church of the Nazarene, including the worldwide ministries created by colleagues in our Global Ministry Center. The World Evangelism Fund also makes it possible for Jesus Film Harvest partners, Nazarene Compassion Ministries, and World Mission Broadcast to flourish. Could you have ever imagined that the sacrificial offering you give to the World Evangelism Fund could accomplish so much? It's because Nazarenes globally are pooling their resources to send the gospel to people in 159 world areas. Without the World Evangelism Fund, none of these mission efforts would be possible. The World Evangelism Fund enables the Church of the Nazarene to fulfill all these ministries.
And that's why we're here today. Let's welcome Brother Jimmy.
Thank you. I want to say a great big thank you to Carl and Andrea. Wonderful host. Had me in their home last night. Andrea cooked us a delicious meal. Then we had some great fellowship together. Actually, before going to bed, we had some big belly laughs over some stories we had to tell. It was quite an interesting night. I enjoyed the couple. So good to be with you. Ever since Pastor invited us several weeks ago to come and join you in your World Evangelism Fund Sunday, we've been excited about it. And I say we, Brenda was supposed to be here also, but she regrets that she's in Mississippi for a family funeral this afternoon, so be praying for that family. But she sends her best to you. Brenda and I have been serving in Swaziland, as most of you know by now. You know, we were in your church in 2011 and gave what we hoped was going to be a good story of our ministry in Swaziland, and it really turned out to be that way. It's a great story. But back then we were telling you just before we went of what was going on in Swaziland, what we expected over there. Actually, what we expected turned out to be somewhat the truth, but so much more was involved than what we expected. It's, as you can only imagine, moving from the United States where we all live to a foreign country, it takes a lot of adjustment, and it did with us. But we want to say thank you for allowing us to be here. We're quite privileged to do so. I've heard already this morning, Brenda and I referred to as missionaries. For some reason, that's hard for us to think of ourselves as missionaries. Actually, we're just lay people, as most of you are. But we have discovered that it doesn't matter whether you serve the Lord in Africa or whether you serve Him right where He's placed you. Amen. God uses us, and if we're in the center of His will, what an amazing life it can be. Amen. Really. Amen. You can attest to that, can't you? Yeah. Yes, thank you, Jesus. And He's certainly done that for us. Brenda and I have had a theme since the very beginning, and that theme has been God has been so far ahead of us. Even before we left for Swaziland, things just seemed to fall into place, just one right after the other that we couldn't have done. But God knew these things had to take place before we could actually go. It's an amazing story to us. Everybody has a story, needed to tell that, but ours is that we were asked, as Tony said, that we would, and Pastor said, if we would go to Swaziland and live over there for an extended period of time. Being involved in missions, and particularly working witness for so many years, and privileged to lead 30 or more teams around the world, we looked at each other across the table from having been asked that question by missionary Danny Harding, and we just said, okay. You know, then it hit us. You know, we need to pray and see if this is God's will. You know, we said okay because we're excited about missions and want to go, and Swaziland is a wonderful place. But God did confirm and let us know clearly that it was His will that we go to Swaziland. And from that, we picked out a verse that's been our verse that we've actually held dear to our hearts throughout our ministry in Swaziland. And I'll read that to you. It's very familiar to all of you. It's found in Psalms 139. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, the light will come light around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. And we found that to be so true in our lives, that God has provided and taken care of us so well over these years. So we want to give God all the praise and honor and glory for what little part we've done in Swaziland and for what great and wonderful things He's doing there at Southern African Nazarene University. Southern African Nazarene University, until 2009, consisted of 3 schools: a school of theology, a school of education, and a school of nursing. They were amalgamated into one university, and right now they are growing by leaps and bounds. They're really taking off, but it's because of what God is doing over there.
Amen.
And we just had a little part of it, and we're so glad He allowed us to do that. I particularly want to thank you for answering, or at least, I guess I could say answering a request that we made of you in 2010. And we've heard from some of you and so many others around the district that y'all prayed for us. Believe it or not, we felt your prayers. And as I said, we actually experienced your prayers. I could tell you stories of how both of us was healed of malaria. I had some other things that happened over there. We were kept safe on some of the most dangerous highways in the world. I can attest to that. I was in the front seat of a car as a passenger when a cow was hit and his head almost landed in my lap, but I was covered with glass and didn't get a scratch. We could tell you of him keeping us safe from AIDS. We were dealing with people over there that about 50% of the population actually has HIV or AIDS full blown. So it's just a country where people are just devastated by that awful and horrible disease, but we were kept safe of it. I can even tell you of a story of Brenda and missionary Dana Harding carrying around with them unknowingly all day long a poisonous snake in the car with them. And how the Lord kept that mouth shut on that snake. We were told early on, and you've heard the name Black Mamba. They're real scary. And we were told that Swaziland did not have anti-venom for black mamba bites, so if you were bitten by a mamba, you were pretty well going to die. But you know, God is wonderful. He's powerful. He kept that snake's mouth closed. But that's a story for another time. I'd love to tell you that, but Brenda can say it better than I, so I'll let her do that. Let me tell you a little bit about Swaziland. And from the last time I was here, I'm afraid it all sounded doom and gloom, and it still is to a great extent. But much is happening over there. God is working great things. The AIDS is still a terrific and terrible problem over there. It's devastating that country along with TB. But things are improving. They're coming, let's say, around, as we want to say it. Swaziland is still a small country. Some of you weren't here when I described Swaziland in 2011. It's about 1/4 the size of South Carolina. It has a small population of about 1.2 million people. You've heard us talk about the AIDS orphan. I'll show a few pictures in a moment about the AIDS orphans. And these are little children that are orphaned because mom and dad, brother, sister, aunt, and uncle all have died of AIDS. And what do you do with a 2, 3, 4-year-old child? At first, they were just roaming the bush country. Dana found them in holes. And she asked them, how do you get along? How do you provide? How do you stay alive? Many of them didn't stay alive. And you might have heard a story where the children would just die and they would just be left out in the bush to whatever. But some of that has progressed. There's much more that needs to progress, and it is. Swaziland is a true absolute monarchy. In other words, it's ruled by a king. You see the picture of him right here. King Mswati III. His dad, Sabusa, King Sabusa, was actually the king that welcomed the Church of the Nazarene into Swaziland. Swaziland is I'll use the word famous, or at least historic, because the first Nazarene missionary on the entire continent in Africa started in Swaziland. Smells. I hope you'll remember that name and look a lot of those stories up. Wonderful stories of his mission there. There's still the highest incidence of AIDS of any country per population in the world. As I say, 30, 40, 50% of the people have contracted that dreadful disease. The lifespan has increased a little bit over there. They say now it's up to about 48 years. But it's because they've introduced medicines, ARVs, that keep the victims of AIDS alive longer. They still have it, and it's still deadly. But they're living a little bit longer, but it's awful. Still, they're living in poverty. About 70% of the population, most of them living out in the bush country, live on about $1 to $2 or maybe $3 per day. I don't even know how they can exist with that. We were asked a question, and have been many times, what was it like to move and live in Africa? How different was it from the States? Brenda was supposed to be here this morning, as I said, and she wrote her answer to that question. And if you allow me, I'd just like to read it. I think it's good. When asked, how was it like to live in Swaziland, Africa? Of course, we could have just answered that real quickly by saying totally different. And you can imagine that it would have been. But here's what she wrote. Several people on the teams that visit us, and we have some here that were over there, thank goodness, have said that Swaziland and the Swazis are about 50 years behind us in the U.S., and I think that's true in a lot of respects. The majority of the people still walk to their destination, especially out in the bush country. They just don't have cars. Even public transportation is by a private van. They don't have buses and so forth that run up and down the road, so to speak. There might be a few. There are no school buses. All school children wear uniforms. The Nazarene school children wear red and black. That's our Nazarene colors. All school children from primary on through high school are taught gardening, and they're taught gardening because they hope they can carry this skill back out into their area of the bush country and at least help themselves by raising some vegetables and so forth. So this is taught in school. As I told the first group, it was we would see the action of these elementary schools children as they were out in the field with machetes. I'm talking about little kids with machetes. You know, we wouldn't dream of putting one of those in the hand of our kids. But they were out clearing the weeds so they could plant some vegetables, and as they grew, the vegetables really were good-looking vegetables, so they were learning that trade. There's no mail delivery over there, which means you get no junk mail and no bills. There are no late fees or grace periods on utilities. As I was telling also the first group over there, every house has this little box that you have on a wall over there that has a set of numbers, 1 through 9 and a 0. And you go to some place in town that sells power, and you go and say, I want 200 rand, which is their money of power. So they take your money, punch a few things in the machine, they come out with a little slip, almost like a receipt slip you get from a gas station. It has 20 numbers on it. You go back to the house and you punch those 20 numbers in there, and all of a sudden some numbers come up. Well, you got so many units of power. We didn't learn real quick, but it didn't take too long that we had to watch those numbers. Because when it hit 0, your lights went out. You know? And also the same thing, almost in the same vein, was cell phone service. Over there, you don't have providers like AT&T and Verizon and Sprint and all of that. Over there, most of the cell phones are bought off of a table that some vendor has on the street over there. You don't tell where those phones came from, but they were. And so you go around and look for these people with a yellow vest, and you can buy time from them. So you say, I want to buy time, 200 rand worth. I don't know if that was minutes or whatever, it was just units. So they would take your phone, punch in a few numbers, and ding, 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 ding. You had some time on your cell phone. But believe me, if you didn't watch that in the middle of a conversation, when that time went to 0, you were cut off. It quit. And they did the same thing with water. I thought it was a pretty good system myself. I think we should have started that years ago. We could eliminate a lot of problems.
Amen.
If you don't pay your bill on time, the service is cut off without notice. We have been without power, water, TV, internet, and cell phone. Speaking of TV, over there you have to buy a license to watch TV every year. Imagine that. The majority of the roads over there are dirt with lots of potholes. Some of these can attest to that. Gas is almost $6 a gallon. You can't pump your own, and it's always nice to tip the attendant because you're probably going to see him again. They drive on the left side of the road. There are many speed bumps, which they call traffic calming. They cost, she's got down here less than traffic police, although there was a lot of traffic police in the country. If we've got time, I'll tell you a little story that happened to me shortly after I got there. I learned rather quickly to drive on the other side of the street. My hardest thing was learning which side of the car to get in. I often got in on our right side, turned out to be their passenger side. Well, I tried to not stupid. I tried not to look stupid, so I acted like I got in there on purpose, and then I'd walk around and get in on the steering wheel. But anyhow, I was stopped by the police. Everybody was at this particular location. They were checking your car out. And this young lady, the policeman walks up to the window, and she, wants to see my license. I showed her the license. She walked around in front. She said, "Your beams." And that's what she said. "Your beams." I said, "What?" "Your beams." "What?" "Your headlights." "Oh, So then she said, "Your indicators." "What?" "Your indicators." "What?" "Your signals, your turn signals." I said, "Oh, Well, this went around the whole car like that. And finally she walked up, she said, "I'll go on." She knew I wasn't from around there anyhow. So it's quite interesting. Most businesses, homes, and churches have iron bars on the windows, iron entrance doors, plus the wooden doors. We even actually had an iron door that we locked every night that led down to the hallway to our bedroom area. Every night. Praying during the night that we'd have no fire because there'd be no way to get out. Fences around every house with razor wire at the top. We had a 24/7 security guard. And all of these we had at our home there in Swaziland on the mission station. Internet is extremely slow over there with very limited download capacity. Manzini, where we lived, is the largest city and got the first modern shopping mall in all of the country. It has an escalator, which we thought was a novelty to so many kids we would see going up and down that escalator almost as if it was a carnival ride. You can find most things at the grocery store there. A majority of things cost more, some few. There's a 14% tax on everything you buy over there. They call it a VAT, value-added tax. Most people don't even know it because it's added into the price. Their income tax is 35%. Cows are considered money. Cows are considered king of the road. They are free-ranging and may pop up anywhere. Believe me, when you look at cows, it seemed like most of the time I'd be driving down the road and these cows would be contented on this side, and just before I got there, they would look up and see that the grass was greener on that side. So they'd walk across right in front of you. You had to be very careful and vigilant. They caused many accidents and fatalities even. Everybody in the country has to stop for the king, but even the king has to stop for a cow. In Swaziland, there's only one tribe. The Swazis there are not like tribal warfare like maybe the Zulus were a little bit to the east of them and in some of the other countries. The predominant religion is Christianity, with the Muslim influence really taking hold and growing there. There's a mosque downtown. We could hear the prayers in the morning and the afternoon from the mosque and the bells and so forth. The dealerships, and we had to deal with these because we had to buy an automobile, were all Muslims, hard to deal with. And just about every Swazi, thank goodness, 6 years or old, was taught English. So that kept us from having to be very fluent in Siswati. So they know Siswati and English. That's taking place really in a lot of places around the world. There's no recycling of anything over there, so those of you can attest to the fact that there's a lot of trash around, although they do have trash service. The Church of the Nazarene is highly respected and has contributed greatly to the betterment of Swazi life. The Swazis are some of the friendliest people you'll ever meet. God placed us in a most wonderful place, even a place where we didn't have modern conveniences and luxuries that we have here in America. We missed our families and our friends, but God did an amazing thing, and this is so true. He gave us a wonderful sense of contentment, a contentment that I know only He can give. We give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. Brenda has a good heart for missions. There were some things over there that we had to get accustomed with as far as is a description of this place or that place or this thing or that thing, just because of their difference in wording. Swaziland has been greatly impacted by the British influence because the British were their protectorate for many, many years, primarily from the Zulus and from the Boers to the south. In 1967, though, the British took their hands off and gave complete control to the country. And as I say, King Mswati, his dad before him, and there were other kings before his dad, but primarily his dad became a true monarch and was able to rule Swaziland without the aid or, let's say, assistance from the British. Thank goodness for the British in a lot of those places. I don't know how they would exist without it. The different words was, for instance, we say a gas station over here. Over there, they just call it a garage. Well, a garage over here is somewhere we carry a car and get fixed. So that took us a little bit used to there. A body shop where you carry a car with a dented fender. Over there, they call it panel beaters. And that just conjures up in your mind. They're over there with a hammer just trying to beat this thing out. You wonder what the fender's going to look like when you get through beating on it. Maybe worse than it was to start with. Gasoline, of course, is called petrol. Van over there is considered to be a combi. Grandmother, a lot of you grandmothers out there, now you can call yourselves a go-go. I think that's an appropriate title for grandmothers. They go-go a lot. Mine does. My wife does as a grandmother. Of course, work breaks for us are tea times over there. Again, British influence. Traffic lights over there are called robots. To start with, we were beginning to look for a robot. Somebody said, go to the second robot down the street. We were thinking this little guy's going to come out with a mechanical arm and all this kind of stuff, but it didn't happen. One of the funniest things, and we would get comments from some of the team members that rode around and saw this sign. We would see auto parts. They would see body parts sold here. So some of the teams say, yeah, I've got a body part or two I'd like to trade in for something. But anyhow, it was all quite interesting. When I was a youngster growing up in the church, and it was in Georgetown at that time, I was very excited when they would tell us that we had a missionary coming to our church. The excitement came because we were going to get to see some slides back then, some pictures of what was happening wherever they were coming from. And I particularly liked it when those pictures were of Africa. Back then we called it dark Africa. That was because the gospel hadn't been spread very far on the continent of Africa. I still like pictures. So I'm going to show you some of the pictures of what has happened in Swaziland, some of the scenes there that the teams came over and worked with us and accomplished and really did a wonderful job. So let me start with the slides. The first one there I've already talked to you was King Mswati III. This is a typical, what they call homestead over there when you get out into the bush country. Let me move some of these over here. I need to see a little better. But as you can see, life is hard out in the bush country. It's no wonder these people just barely eke out an existence. Here's one that has multiple little huts, and from early on, we were told that because they still practice polygamy over there in Swaziland, there's usually, when you find multiple huts, there's a male figure somewhere in there, and for each of his wives, he'll build another hut, and that wife will raise their children in that hut. Even the king that I just showed you a picture of has 14 or 15 wives, and now 24 children, I believe it is. His dad, before he died, I think had 50 or 60 wives, and I heard he had over 120 children. When you get a little closer to the cities, more in the urban area, you'll find that instead of huts, it'll be these tight little houses here. They discovered the cement blocks several years ago, and since then have used that to their improvement. This is Dr. Klingbeck. She is what we would call the president of the university over here. Over there, they refer to her as the vice chancellor, a brilliant woman, great Nazarene, great Christian lady, wonderful friend of ours. We're very, very happy that she's there and privileged. This is the entrance to the university or the mission station grounds in Manzini. This is what you see when you drive up, Church of the Nazarene. Have any of you ever read the missionary books of Africa, on Africa, and heard of the word Raleigh-Fitkin Hospital? Yeah, some of you have. Well, that's Raleigh-Ficton Hospital, right behind that sign there. You would get onto the other parts of the mission station by turning right and going around. This is the condition of the road during the rainy season that went down to our house. Believe me, when you travel that mile and a half on that road, you were glad to get there. This is a little house that they gave us, a very comfortable home. We were just fine there. They provided for us nicely. You can see our fence there and so forth. So we felt safe there, although we had an incident or two when somebody tried to cut through the fence, but our guards headed that off. We were cautioned not ever to go out at night because anything could happen, although we did have to on occasion. This little house we discovered after not knowing where we were going to house the teams that came over there. Brenda and I worked truthfully, 35 straight days on that little house to turn it into an inhabitable condition for the teams. There was a kitchen we put in there, as well as a couple of bedrooms and baths and so forth, while the teams slept actually in this building. Now, this building is the administration building. This building was sound in construction, we found, and well worth the renovation, but it really needed renovation outside, but primarily on the inside. So this is the project that we were given right off the bat. While we were under construction there, the team members actually stayed in the rooms, the office rooms of this building. Here's some of the workers this team happened to have been out of Virginia. We had 17 teams visit us over there, which was remarkable. 6 teams came from your district, South Carolina. What a wonderful district we have. The bathrooms were just, I'll just say bad. So when we finished remodeling, refurbishing the bathrooms, they were inviting. This is a little kitchenette that I put in for tea time, as they call it up in the executive wing of that building. She gave me carte blanche on doing whatever I wanted to as far as picking out colors, tile, design, and so forth. So I had fun doing that. This picture was taken very close to the end of our time there last year. Little red car is a car they provided for us. The little green one next to it is one we bought and used the first 2 years. This is another picture of that parking lot that we finished just before we left. We had so many people visiting the administration building. They were trying to park helter-skelter all over the place, so we thought this would be a good way to do that, to keep order. This wall, I call the Wall of Fame. I'm very proud of that wall. Dr. Winnie wanted us to put that up. The pictures on the right side show 17 teams, all the team members that came over to help us out. And then there's some other pictures in the center and over on the left. This is a picture of the front of the building after we left it in 2012. I found a place downtown that could make these signs. They actually cut them out of metal because there was no signage there to depict what was going on or what this building was. So, and then this is how the building looked actually just before we left in 2015. They gave me permission to put lighting out front, so we eliminated that building. Several people that I came in contact with later said, after driving by there at night, it's the first time we ever noticed that building. So it got some recognition, and we're glad for that. This is a group, this happens to be a Smelsaball pastor, Terry Smelsaball. He is of the lineage of the Smelsaballs. We're at what is considered a care point. There was 2 care points over there that we ministered to these orphans. Now these are AIDS orphans. Like I told you before, why they're orphaned. They would gather at these care points every day, every morning. We're not sure where they slept at night. We hope a lot of them would be allowed by some of the intact families in the community to let the kids at least stay under roof. But they didn't feed them. So they would come here once a day to get 1 meal of porridge Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, these points were closed down, so they didn't get anything to eat Saturday and Sunday. And remember, these intact houses or huts, it was all they could do to feed themselves. So I doubt these kids got very much. But this is a group of kids at one of the centers. We provided them food, clothing, shoes, sang with them, tried to play with them, lift their spirits. This was the kitchen that was there originally when we got there. The meal of porridge was cooked daily on that fire. We were so glad when there was a couple from our church donated the money to build this new kitchen. Now this may not look much to us, but believe me, this is a very modern kitchen over there. That's the stove. There's 2 embedded pots down in that concrete. There's a fire under it. This is where the porridge is made. Doesn't that look delicious? If you were starving to death, it would. But anyhow, we're so grateful that at least these points could provide children at least a solid meal, a nutritional meal once a day. I asked the first group, and I'll ask you, what do you not see in this picture? What? Girls? Yeah, there's some girls in there. Don't see any adults. That's true. There are some there for caretakers. What else do you not see? Smiles. There's not a smile on a face. Have you ever seen any more hopeless looking faces in your life? And these are children. These are small children, as you can see. But what do they have to hope for? This is a picture of the Smelzenbaugh. That's Harlan Smelzenbaugh, his wife Lulu, and 3 of the children. They actually had 10 children born to them in Africa, because when they first went there, the witch doctors told everybody that they were bad, not to listen to them spreading this Christianity gospel, because it was against their witchcraft teachings, that they were told not to sell food to them. Actually, 3 of their children died of malnutrition, starved to death. They were buried there. This is the entrance to the mission station where Smelzenbaugh started his work up in the northwest part of Swaziland in the mountains. This is the first church of the Nazarene in all of Africa. This is where he began the ministry there. This is actually, a lot of it is the original church, but as a whole, this is actually the 3rd church. He had 2 of them burned out from under him. They're again instigated by the witch doctors to have this done. They really didn't want the gospel there. They were afraid of it. This is the inside of that little church. And for those of us that have been there, it's like we're walking on hallowed ground. Right, Grippy? Yes, it is. It's a wonderful place to be and just jog your mind and memory as to what takes place. Just a little bit above that, if you know the story of the Smelzenbaugh, is what is referred to as a prayer rock. He would often go up here, as well as some of his ministers that he had working with him, to this rock, and he could oversee a vast part of the country there. And he would pray. And from this rock, particularly at night as he was praying, he could see the fires of 1,000 fires around in the low country. They call it the low belt. And he knew the gospel had not gone down into that low belt country, but those people needed it. He was warned, though, not ever to go down there, missionary. If you go down there, you'll catch black water fever, malaria, and you'll die. So he didn't for a while, but he couldn't stand it after seeing all those fires. So finally he asked the Lord, he said, Lord, if you'll give me long enough in life to put a church in every one of those 25 chiefdom areas, I'll do it. And God granted him the time. He did plant 25 churches in those 25 chieftain areas, but he did die of malaria for doing so. So what a testimony is that. And this is his grave that's there pretty close to that little church I just showed you. And several of his children are buried there also. These buildings are at our campus, the theology campus, Faculty of Theology now. These are dormitories. These were sort of in dilapidated condition, but we revamped, redid all the bathroom facilities in there, made them beautiful. Painted the roofs. They weren't painted. This is the backside of the administration building. This building here was our last project. This was the library. It was in rundown condition. There were books in there that, President Roosevelt, that's how old a lot of these things were. I had a team come over from Tribeca Nazarene University. They totally took everything out of this building, books, shelves, and everything, and put it in a temporary location. So it left this building open. So what we discovered was a lot of the ceiling tiles up there, about a third of them were falling down because of leaky ceilings and insulation all over the floor. The floor was in terrible condition, but we wanted to leave them with a great place for the students studying theology to become pastors would have to learn there. This is just some of the progress that's going on. What we found in there when we took the carpet up, which was covered, the floor was very uneven, so we actually had to pour about a 2-inch concrete cap over the whole thing to level it up before we could put down the tile. That's my son Jason, very proud of Jason. He's going to start co-coordinating the district team with me, and hopefully the Lord will lead that he might take it over. I don't know who this curly-headed guy is, but he learned how to tile. This is some more pictures of the great people. Now, we tried our best to involve the locals over there. These are from some of the office workers into helping us. We wanted this to be their project, not ours, for them to take possession of it. This what we weren't over there to give a handout, we were over there to give a hand. This is the new entranceway to the library. I'm right proud of that tile work there. I did that with the help of a friend of mine, one of the guards. But anyhow, this is how the library looked as when we left it. Very shiny, very open, very, very inviting. And that's what we wanted. And I understand now it's been fully stocked, the shelves back in, new books in place. We left enough money with them to buy 7 computers that would just advance the learning process there for all. This is just a sign of where Brenda and I attended church. This is the only English-speaking church in town, the Living Waters Church, a wonderful pastor. There is still a lot of what we call African animals in Africa, of course, some even in Swaziland. But this is just a picture of a team sort of being surprised by an elephant walking behind their van there. And of course, most of you know Nine and Moody Gunner. They came to visit us the last 2 weeks, I think, before we came back home. We were so glad that they came and visited with us. They've been such an inspiration to our lives. I hope you've enjoyed these slides, and thank you again for allowing me to come. Brenda gives her regrets that she couldn't be here, but pray for both of us. I'll be leading a team to Hawaii in February, and you may think, well, why Hawaii? Well, I thought that too for many years. When you think of Hawaii, you think of a paradise, but once I was over there and looked, Hawaii's not all paradise. It's as bad as some places you'll ever go to. So pray for the team as we go over there in February. God bless you all. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. God bless you.